Good afternoon. My name's Tom Swan, and I want to first start with some appreciation for people's patience. I think most people know I'm normally very good at getting back immediately when people contact me, and the last 36 hours between exercising myself from other obligations, telling my wife after she heard about it in the press, and figuring out what's going on. I wanted to at least be able to answer some of your questions before coming forward. Secondarily, I want to apologize. I know I'm often difficult to hear to begin with, but I've got a hoarse throat. I've been fighting a flu for the entire week, so please bear with me. My name's Tom Swan. I am the new campaign manager for the Chris Donovan for Congress campaign. I want to start off and say unequivocally, Chris did nothing wrong, and if I thought for 1 second there was a question about that, I wouldn't be standing here today. I have a beautiful 15-month-old daughter that I'd much rather be hanging out on Coventry Lake than talking with all of you wonderful people here today. And I think I would be feeling that for the next few months as we go forward. Secondarily, when Chris became aware of these accusations, he took immediate action, including bringing me on and changing staff and terminating any staff that had been alleged to have been doing wrongdoing. Third, he has chosen to fully cooperate, both up until now and will continue to, with any investigation that the U.S. Attorney's Office is doing. Fourth, in terms of the special session, he has turned over responsibility for the special session in negotiating with the governor to the majority leader, Brendan Sharkey, who has been involved fully within the process in order to remain above even the appearance of impropriety. Fifth, he will not be stepping down as Speaker or ceasing campaigning as a congressional candidate, as numerous media outlets ran into him last night and saw him as he was at the Fair Housing Center. And finally, before I begin to take your, I'm sure, very kind questions, I want to announce that we have retained Stan Twardy to do an internal investigation, to report back at the soonest time period to us as a campaign, and whatever we find, we will turn over to the U.S. Attorney. Finally, any ill-gotten campaign contributions that it comes to our attention that have been donated to campaign will be turned over to Connecticut Citizens Election Program. As you all know, Chris was the leading fighter in Connecticut for passing the public financing system to root out corruption. He's committed to continue to reinforce and support that program here in Connecticut, and he will continue to fight for those types of policies when he becomes a Congress member from the 5th Congressional District. Chris will continue to go forward, and people like me and thousands of other people across the state are counting on him because he is the only person in the 5th Congressional District race that is fighting for Connecticut's working families. Thank you.
Is he a target of the investigation?
We're working on that, and it will be in a short period of time.
Is he a target? Has he been told he is a target or is not a target of this probe?
I do not. That is not up to me. I have not been in contact with the U.S. Attorney's Office. So, to my knowledge, he is not a target in this investigation.
But has he been told?
No, and he's cooperated with people.
What is it you need to do to prepare him to begin to publicly answer, have him publicly answer?
Chris wants to figure out more information, like all of us do, about what happened, and to be able to determine what are the appropriate next steps for when he sits down and talks to people in a more extended period.
Chris had no knowledge of this going on. What does that say about his campaign that he didn't have his finger on the pulse of what was going on during certain fundraising, etc.?
Have you ever worked on a campaign?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, these things definitely can happen. They've happened pretty widely. If you're talking about Chris has raised $1 million up until this point in time, no contributions greater than $2,500. He's, you start to do the math and the time. He's not going to be able to do every single one of those. We've had a compliance firm in Providence, Rhode Island, since the beginning of the campaign, trying to make sure, because Chris has always believed in, government accountability, transparency, good government, and through that, the firm didn't catch this. That's why we're bringing on Stan Twardy to help us really figure this out, and to make sure that we put in place the types of controls to make sure this type of crap doesn't happen again. I started on the campaign about 14 hours ago, and I haven't given him a single briefing yet.
Does Chris retain an attorney?
Chris has retained an attorney.
What did Chris?
Was that
Let me give you the name. I'll give the name. I just got to look it up. It's I have had no communications with the campaign with Mr. Braddock, and Chris has not had any communications with
What
Mr.
did
Braddock.
Chris tell you that made you feel, and just state a second ago, that he's done nothing wrong?
When I sat down with him, and I've known Chris for 18 years now, worked very closely with him, and I looked him right in the eye. And I said, "Is there any truth to this, and did you do anything wrong?" And he looked me in the eye, and he said no.
when did Chris learn that this investigation existed? Was it Wednesday when the arrest occurred? Was it Thursday when the FBI approached?
Chris learned around the same time as the rest of us. I don't have that exact timeline, but he learned. It was this week that Chris learned, and from the minute that he learned of it, he began cooperating with the U.S. attorneys, because he's not going to put up with any wrongdoing.
So you're saying that Chris wouldn't have caught Chris's eye that he gets a $2,500 contribution from an unknown person in, say, Waterbury? It seems like most candidates for higher office in Connecticut would pay pretty close attention if all of a sudden they're getting a $2,500 contribution. He wasn't involved in the campaign so that he was to that level?
Chris was not involved with the campaign to that level. I started the campaign yesterday. So out of this, I can tell you that does not strike me as a total aberration. You're given a thank you note to write, and, that happens to any large contributors. That's up to others to judge. I'm not going to get into that type of speculation. I'm here today as the campaign manager, and I'm here today to tell you what we've done, what we're doing, and how we're addressing this. And I think we're taking more steps than anybody would have expected a campaign to do at this point in time. I mean, Stan Twardy is not a friend of Chris Donovan's, right? I mean, this is a guy that was a U.S. attorney under a Republican president, was chief of staff under Lowell Weicker. They may have met before, but it's not like anybody's going to question his integrity in order to lead the investigation.
You had your meeting with Chris. You said you looked him in the eye. Did you flat out ask him what have the feds told you as to whether or not you are or aren't a target? Seems like that would be kind of a key thing to determine what Chris might be facing as far as liability.
That might be, but I'm going to say, there's a lot going through your mind when you have that discussion, and I did not ask that question.
Who hired Mr. Braddock, and did Chris have any role in recruiting him for the campaign?
Recruiting,
Hiring him,
once again, that was before my time. Traditionally on staff, the campaign manager hires any type of staff, and the candidate, usually for significant positions, has some input. But
that goes back to Steve's question. There's so much that you can't tell us about what's going on.
right, but I've told you a lot more than you knew before, Paul.
When are we going to hear from him? And are we going to hear from him in a setting like this, or is he going to try to set up single interviews with individual outlets?
I'm sure if he did, it'd first be with the Waterbury Republican
Well, I
American.
appreciate that, but I think some of my colleagues might appreciate it if he did it all at once.
I'm sure all of us, all of you would. I'm pretty sure pretty soon after he found out about, he had an attorney before I talked to him yesterday morning.
When did he find out about the investigation?
He found out about it this week, around the same time as everybody else. So,
How many of the Democrats asking you that Chris should step down as a speaker or in his campaign?
none have asked me. So, I don't care.
Tom, you've known him for, you said, 20 years.
18 years, almost 20.
Is it fair to say that he doesn't really like the dialing for dollars aspect of campaigning?
That is my understanding. And it was one of the reasons why he was the biggest proponent. And, he, along with Don Williams and Jody Rell, are the reason Connecticut has the best public financing system in the entire country. And the fact that they worked together on that because they wanted to make sure elections were about democracy and not who could raise the most money, I think is a big reason why I'm here. We've had 2 days where we're not exactly on message here, and I don't think it's going to necessarily be our last day. But what I'm very confident about is that Chris has a bigger network of supporters in the 5th District and in this state than any other politicians in the entire state, and that those folks are going to rally around him and organize as never before because they know he is the only fighter for Connecticut's families in the 5th Congressional District.
Have you received any phone calls from the DCCC?
I have not, no. Chris, right now, it is his daughter's 20th birthday. Do you want to all sing her happy birthday?
So do you see this as a case of entrapment?
I'm not going to get into the legal woods here. It's not. I don't even play a lawyer on TV.
But you met with him, you believe his side of things.
But he hasn't been charged with anything, so how can you even use that word?
It's a sting operation, wasn't it?
You're using those words. I'm not necessarily going to disagree with you, but Chris hasn't been charged with any wrongdoing.
Has he been interviewed by FBI agents?
He has cooperated fully with the U.S. Attorney's Office and the federal
Has
agencies.
had contact with them?
Yes.
Do you know how long he met with them?
No.
When the money came in, regardless of the mechanism by which it came in, was he aware of where the money was coming from? Supposedly this link to the bill?
I wasn't there, right? I don't.
Did he know that he just got $10,000 that was somehow related to this idea of allegedly
Okay, my understanding is before any of this stuff broke this week, the supposed legislation that was supposed to be attempted to be killed was very much front and center to be included, and I think Mr. Paziokas already pointed that out today, within the legislation that Chris had been negotiating. So,
that the money somehow came from someone who had an interest in that legislation, allegedly?
I don't know, right? I wasn't there, but everybody that gives has an interest. Whether it's I'm interested because you're my friend, or I'm interested because I care about the environment. Everybody has an interest. It's about what happens with that makes it one way or another. And clearly, by where that piece of legislation was in this special session, the money wasn't making any difference.